In this movie, we're going to have a look at Motion Sketch, which is a fantastic way of actually drawing motion paths without having to use Bezier handles. So if you want to follow along, open Motion Sketch AEP, which you can find in the Animation Basics folder. And we're in 03 Scene Composition. And this is a fun little scene that I've created. I've taken a photograph of the pier in Brighton and composited a few elements on top of it, including my little thug dog walk cycle. And I've dragged that in as what we call a nested composition, which you'll find out about in another movie. But for now, all we're going to worry about is animating the position and scale of these layers. So we're going to start by looking at the seagull. So I want you to select the seagull layer, and here we see a bounding box around the seagull layer. Again, if you want to make that clearer, go to Edit, Label, let's do pink for this one, and it just highlights it a little bit more. And what we're going to do is use Motion Sketch. Now, the way it works is it will capture any movement that you make with your mouse or your graphics tablet and pen, if you're lucky enough to have a Wacom tablet, and it will apply it to the layer. So you can literally draw the animation that you want instead of having to use Bezier handles, which can be awkward. Now, there's a few little idiosyncrasies to using this that you have to be careful of. The first thing is when you click on Start Capture, it doesn't start capturing immediately. If I click on Start Capture, you'll notice that in the info panel, it's telling me that I need to click again to begin capture. And the icon has changed to this little crosshair. Now, as soon as I click on this window, it will start to capture. In fact, as soon as I click anywhere, it will start to capture. So you kind of need to be ready and position it before you click where you want it to be. Now, it probably take you 2 or 3 times to get this right. So what we're going to do is we just click and draw the motion that we want to do. And I've just drawn that using my pen and Wacom tablet. And you'll notice it's much easier to get a really nice smooth curve with a pen and Wacom tablet than it is with, say, for example, a mouse. And you'll see it plays back exactly the same shape and timing that I used to draw my path. Now, if you don't get it right first time and you've messed it up, just go to Edit, Undo, or Command-Z, Control-Z to undo, and then click on Start Capture again, and just try and do it again. So this time, I'm going to take a little bit longer and be a bit more careful with it, and just preview it. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that. I think I'm going to go with that. Now, if you think it's okay, but you want to smooth it out a little bit more, what you can do is you can select the keyframes. Now, these are selected, and you can tell they're selected because they're yellow. So we don't need to select them here, but if we did, you can select them by clicking on the word position. And then we can use the smoother just to take out some of the unnecessary keyframes. You'll see here, it's created, I would say, hundreds of keyframes. Probably not hundreds, maybe scores of keyframes there to record the motion. We don't need all of those, so we can just apply a tolerance of 1 to our spatial path, which is this one, and click Apply, and that will remove some of the keyframes. Now, if I put that up to a value of, say, 10, and then click Apply, notice it removes a lot of the keyframes, but I still have a nice curve and nice timing. And that just means that if I do need to go in and tweak the curves a little bit, I can do without too much trouble. Now, with all of the keyframes selected, I can move the whole path. Notice that that moves the whole path. If I want to move individual points, I need to deselect the keyframes, select the layer, and then just click on the individual points to adjust them and get that path exactly where I want it. So you can use Motion Sketch as a starting point. Now, the other thing that I want to do here, you'll notice the bird is remaining parallel to the edge of the comp as it flies. I want it actually to dip and follow the path as if it's turning as it's flying. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is go up to my Layer menu and choose Transform Auto Orient. And what that will do, if I click on Orient Along Path, watch what happens to the seagull. Okay, when I click OK, suddenly the seagull turns as it moves along the path. So we're getting this nice dipping effect. And if we preview that, we'll see it's much more like a real seagull now. Well, not really like a real seagull. It's kind of supposed to be a little bit kitsch. But you'll see it mimics a real seagull. Now, what I want you to do as a little practice is then use Motion Sketch to animate the dog. Now, we're also going to scale it so it looks like he's coming from the distance over here to the foreground. So probably what I would do here is, again, move to where you want the animation to start. Very important, because if you motion sketch, it will record from where the time marker is. Click on Start Capture, and it tells me you can't actually motion sketch 3D layers. And this is a problem. I've made this layer 3D, so we can't actually use motion sketch on 3D layers. So what you want to do if that happens is click OK and turn off 3D so that we're only working on a 2D layer. Now we can click on Start Capture, and we can capture the movement that we want the dog to make across the sand. And now we have the dog walking across the beach. Okay. Now if we wanted to make that 3D, we can now make it 3D, and it will keep the keyframes. Okay. So very important, you need to switch off 3D before you motion sketch. If you're not doing 3D, you can leave it in 2D, and instead what we'll do is animate scale. So we'll click on the stopwatch to set a keyframe for scale. We'll scale him down to about 38%. Then we'll move him to the beginning, and we're going to scale him all the way down to about 18%, maybe a little bit smaller, about 15. And if we preview that, we now have him running towards the screen. Now, not the best animation in the world that I've done, but you can always redo it. If you want to, select the keyframes, hit backspace to delete them, and just start capture again. So this time I'm going to do a little bouncy walk. Okay, as he's walking towards the screen, he's bouncing around a little bit more. Now, if that's too much, we just select the keyframes and we can smooth it by clicking Apply. And there we have a little bit of motion, but not too much. Okay, a little bit of a rubbish animation there, but you get the idea of how motion sketch works. As I said, that you can then go in and tweak it. You may decide that you want something a little bit more sensible, so we could just delete the keyframes, say Start Capture again, and then just do something a little bit more sensible. Okay, so now he's doing a kind of straight walk towards the camera. Okay, so a little bit about motion sketch and how you can use it to control layers without having to mess around with Bezier curves.